Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Sick Podcast, Recruits Draftcast. We are just a few days away from the start of the summer showcase. The week after that is the Linka Gretzky, but Grant, we still don't have any actual hockey to talk about. So you went on Tony's show on Thursday, and you guys had a pretty cool exercise where you talked about the Habs under 25 core. And this prompted us of having this idea of maybe looking at other teams who are, among the best with the best futures. So we're going to be looking at 6 teams today who we believe have the best under 25 core. We're going to be comparing them, but we're not going to rank them just yet. You're going to have to stay tuned for that. So without further ado, let's get started.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Recruits Draftcast.
With our first pick in the 2022 NHL Draft, les Canadiens de Montréal sont fiers de repêcher from the Slovakian national team and TPS Turku, Juraj Slafkovsky.
The sickest NHL draft and scouting podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Producer Shane here, reporting for duty. The man by my side, you know him, you love him. It's Grant McCagg. Grant, how are you?
Excellent. Yourself?
Love it, love it. I'm doing great. It's beautiful July. We got hockey coming up soon. It's the Olympics. It's a lot of fun here in the sports world, so can't complain at all. You've been a busy man. Let me tell you, you've been a busy man, always trying to find something to talk about. We run this show all year long, even though the draft talk is mostly right in the month of June. So 11 other months we're still talking about the prospects. We're still talking about what the future of this sport looks like, and this is no different. We're rocking and rolling. It's July. It's the end of July, but won't stop us. And like I mentioned in the intro, we're going to be delving into some teams under 25 cores. But before we do, Grant, we obviously have to give a big thank you to the sponsors of this show, starting with none other than Betway. Betway is a leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway. Go on betway.com or scan the QR code to join the action. Must be 18 plus and play responsibly. We also have to give a big thank you to Insta Customs. Insta Customs are proud supporters of Recruits and the Sick Podcast, Recruits Draftcast, the highest rated apparel print shop in Canada at 4.9 Google stars, specializing in direct-to-garment printing and embroidery. Located just minutes away from the Bell Center on Rue Stanley in Montreal. Please visit their website at instacustoms.com. And last but not least, we have to give a big thank you to Cheapest T-shirts. Cheapest rock bottom apparel, wholesale prices in all of Canada. T-shirts at $247, hoodies at $13.95, and crew necks at $7.83, and much more. 36 different clothing brands and over 600 different products. No minimum order required to get the cheapest prices. Order today, ship today, get it tomorrow. Why are you paying more for nothing? Head on over to cheapesttshirts.ca. And Grant, I got to tell you, I placed an order just last week. I got myself a Columbia jacket and Adidas sweatpants. And what I'm saying is not a lie. I placed the order and I got it the next day. Mint quality, fantastic stuff. So highly, highly recommend you go check them out. Cheapesttshirts.ca.
You should have wore your jacket today.
A little hot for that.
Oh, yeah.
It's a high quality jacket, so I'd be drenched. I'd probably lose 5 pounds by the time we're done with this show. I
got fleece. I got fleece pullovers, and I'm waiting. I am going to don them come September when it cools down a little bit. I'll show them off someday. Give Nick and his great gang there at Insta Customs and Cheapest T-shirts another plug.
Yeah, Nick is the man. He is the man. All right. So Grant, like I mentioned in the intro there, you were on Tony's show on Thursday and you guys talked about the Habs under 25 core. what the future could look like. Obviously, it's just what we have now, right? But times will change, right? The players that are going to be added and removed from that list. But as of today, right, we're going to look at 6 different teams who we believe have the best under 25 core. And we're going to start with one of the teams that a lot of people think might have the best. That's the Anaheim Ducks. So let's pull up the list if we can. You look at that forward core, even on defense, Lucas Dostal in net, they're pretty deep everywhere. So what do you like most about this Anaheim core?
Yeah, I like most that they've got a Gauthier and a Gaucher, and I hope they play on the same line someday. And the broadcasters are going to have a little bit of nightmares with that. But no, I mean, look at that depth. Karlsson can play center, right? And he may end up being the first line center. Yeah. Personally, I love Mason McTavish, and I think he's the man.
So do I.
I mean, I would have him center and Karlsson and Seneca would be what I would do. I think that would be, one of the best 2 or 3 years down the road, might be one of the best lines in the league. A little bit of everything in that trio. Now, whether they end up playing together or not is another thing. But he may not be a first line center because they, as in the third or top 3 pick, because a top 2 pick might be ahead of him, or a top 5 pick in Gauthier. So they got 3 guys that can play top 2 center roles in the NHL. Personally, I think Leo's best suited on the wing. I'm still not sold on his defensive play. And I think with Gauthier's addition that they may end up looking at that down the road where they end up putting Karlsson on McTavish's wing or Gauthier's wing. We'll see, but it's a pleasant problem to have, just like with the Canadians.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can always move centers to the wing, right? You know how much I love Seneca. We talked about that all winter long, most of the winter anyways. And I just thought it was great that they picked him up. I think he's a perfect addition to their top 6. Where I think, with this group, it's pretty strong. You like Gauthier could be a really solid third line center. Pettersson's another possibility at center, but they've got so many of them that I think he ends up on the wing. He started the World Junior or the under 18 tournament at center, first line center for Sweden, but they only got better when he moved to the wing and Jack Berglund centered him. I think he's ideally going to be a winger. And with McTavish, Gauthier, Karlsson, even Zegras can play center.
Yeah.
I just don't see him. I think he's a top 9 player, but he wouldn't be a top 9 if he was playing center with this group. So you switch him to the wing. I like Colson Petrie too. I think the one hole that they have there as far as is second line right wing at this point. Yeah. Like the first 5 guys out of the 6 are studs, either prospects or players. And I mean, you could put Massey there, Colangelo, Petrie, Sidorov. They're all good prospects, but none of them jump out as saying, well, they're going to be good second line wingers. And that, I think, is the one unknown really in this in their top 9. But I love Precision too. I thought he was a great pick, and he'd be Gauthier, Precision, 3-4 center. If that's what it ends up being, they might be perfect. I just love them down the middle. I think that's the real strength of them. But yeah, you can back it up with Zegras, Seneca, and Karlsson if they end up being on the wing. Holy frig! It's just it's a wonderful prospect group up front. Dostal's just barely made the under 25. He's turning, I think in the fall here he turns 25. But any goalie that's under 25 or even 25 is just entering their prime. So he's got a lot of years left. So you still consider him to be entering his prime.
Yeah.
The one, just like right wing, second line, the other area where you could say that they're maybe a little behind a couple of other clubs when it comes to the very top under 25 talent is on right defense. I like Luno and Warren, and Lacombe is actually a left defenseman. I stuck him over on the right side because after those two, it's basically all left defensemen. Like, I think all of those guys are left defense other than Luno and Warren. And I think ideally you want Luno and Warren to be like number 2 and second and third pairing guys, but they both have lots of potential. Like Warren's, I think, going to be a good shutdown type defenseman. Luno, maybe he can be a top pairing guy, but I mean, you put him with, you take your pick on the left side. It's Mintyukov, Solberg, or Zellweger, one of the three, right? I love them all. They're very, I mean, you know how much I liked Solberg too. I really liked their top 2 picks this year, boy. But that's what put them over the top for me, along with Precision. Massey, they had a really strong draft, I think, and it put them definitely in the top 6 mix. Now, I didn't look at all the teams, and I'm going to be doing I'm going to do an article and have the under 25 depth chart for every NHL team, and I'm going to rank them 1 to 32. I didn't do it for this. I just have 6 ones that are, we're going to touch on 6 ones that are in the running. Yeah. And certainly Anaheim, for me, they're going to be, I think they'll likely end up, don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but probably going to be one of the top 3 teams ranked with that group.
I think that's undeniable. I would agree with you there.
It's a solid group. I think come down to the 4th, 5th line, there might be a couple of other teams that have a little more. Like, there's a lot of questions there. Mijatovic, I don't know. I don't know that he's going to be an NHLer. We'll see with Massey with his skating. Pastujov, I don't know, but I mean, I like Tarrance and Sidorov too. And certainly out of that bottom 6 group, there's likely 3 NHLers anyways. And then that would be your 4th line. What happens is not all these guys make it, obviously, because there are guys that are on the current team and there'll be guys traded for. There'll be more draft picks in the future, high picks that beat out some of these guys. But hey, you got to look at there being at least 9 forwards and 5 of those defensemen, and certainly Dostal and Nets that all look like they're going to be regular NHLers, and some of them could be stars. So love that group.
That's it. No, big shout out to Martin Madden Jr. I know Tony loves him, but he's done just a fantastic job in Anaheim as assistant GM and scouting director. You look at that group, I mean, there's a lot of high-end talent all over. So I think fans in Anaheim are pretty excited, should be pretty excited about what's to come. Because, I mean, they've sucked for a while now, but it's paid off. It's clearly paid off.
You keep getting top 5 picks, and you add a top 5 guy in Gauthier, who arguably could have been top 3 in his draft class, the way it's looking. Eventually, you've got that core, and I think it's there now. They may not be like, the defense is going to be a bit of a question still, maybe for a year or 2 as these guys develop, but maybe one more year with one more top 10 guy pick, and if they can get that right winger to go with Seneca, look out. Their top 6 and top 9 is going to be almost untouchable down the road. So I I love this group. They're one of the best under 25 groups for sure in the league.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, speaking of another team that sucked for a while, let's take a look at Buffalo. Buffalo has been struggling since forever, it seems. And you know what? It's led to some pretty high draft picks. So you would expect them to be on this list that we're doing here, and they are. But I'm not fully convinced yet. I think they're still missing a few things, but from what it's looking like, shaping up to be a decent core. What do you think, Grant?
Yeah, well, they just signed Luukkonen to a 4-year deal, and we'll see. I've always found, well, goalies, you just don't know, right?
Yeah.
I know when he came into the NHL, there was a lot of hype around him, and I don't know. I still have my doubts about him, but the potential is there for him to be a decent goalie. And the same goes for Levi. He was even more hyped, obviously, but he is a bit undersized, and we'll see if he can, handle the pressure down the road. But you like those two in nets. Ratzlav's a decent prospect. Leinen was picked high, so that's a decent goaltending core, and that's been their Achilles heel. That, like, I think for a lot of years there, they had some pretty talented young squads, but didn't necessarily get the goaltending. And maybe they still needed help on defense, but now you look at that defense group. I mean, Dolan, Byram, Power, Jokiharju, Johnson, Samuelson, and Sturback. The 7 defensemen that I really like, every one of them. Power still got to do some. He's still trying to find his way to a certain degree, but wait till he breaks out. I think Dolan had didn't have as good a year last year, but he can break out. Byram just reaching that age where he can go into his zone. I don't know if he's going to play with Dahlin, but that could be a heck of a pairing, top pairing for them down the road. So you like that defense group, obviously. Not a big Samuelson fan, but hey, if he's your 6th guy, you can live with that, former first-round pick. Personally, I think Sturback will eventually replace him, but we'll see. I mean, Johnson and Samuelson, you have them as a third pairing, and they're both first-round picks. So it just gives you an idea of, like, the quality there, right? They've got so many recent first-round picks in this group. It's just crazy. Ryan McLeod's still under 25, right? They just picked him up. I mean, you could slot him anywhere. Right now, out of that group, he's probably going to be number 2. Like, I mean, there'll be another center, Todd Thompson or whoever will be ahead of all these guys. Yeah. But as far as which one of those 5 centers is going to, be at the top of after Cousins in the next year or two, it's likely going to be McLeod in the 3rd center spot. But I love Ostlund. I had him ranked number 2 in his draft year, so ahead of Shane Wright, ahead of Logan Cooley. Absolutely love the kid. I think it's just a matter of him putting on some beef, but his smarts, vision, competitiveness are elite as far as I'm concerned. He may still be 1 year away, but look out when he's got the NHL strength to handle NHL size. I think personally he's better. Going to be better than Hellenius and maybe better than Cousins down the road. So I love. If Hellenius ends up being your 3rd line center someday, they just picked him top 15. You got to like that. I mean, they got rid of Savoy. They had so much depth, right?
Yeah.
The only caveat you put on this would be that there's a bit of a lack of size in this group. I think you may see them making a couple of more moves with these guys in the next year or two, where maybe 1 or 2 of them get dealt for players with a little more beef, because you're going to need you got to have a bit of both, right? You can't just yeah, they've got Cousins and Thompson and a couple other guys, but certainly in this prospect group here, when you look at it, the only guy in the top 9 with any size is Cousins. So they'll have to get that sorted out, but it's a pleasant problem to have. Even if they're a little undersized, they're just there's so much talent. I love Peterka. Kulich probably makes the team this year. We've seen how good he is. He buried Laval a few times. I've watched games over the last couple of years, and he always seems to score goals against them, kill them. Loved him. I had him ranked just like Oslin. I think I had Kulich top 12, and they got him at the end of the first round.
Yeah.
So they've made some great, even Hellenius, dropped to them. It just seems like every year there's a kid that drops to them in the first round. Rosen's a very good prospect too. He was top 15, but he hasn't, much like Oslin, needed to get bigger. He still needs to get bigger. Sometimes these European kids in particular can be take them a little longer to physically mature, but I expect him to be ready this year. Peterka is probably going to be full-time. Quinn's back from his injury.
Yeah.
Like he'll be fully recovered and he could have a real breakthrough year, another top 10 pick. So you've got to love that group. Krebs is even a top 20 pick, and I've got him, down on the fourth line spot, but you could easily replace him with Zemer, on the third line on the left side. They're all interchangeable. These are by no means where I think players will definitively end up. It's just more of a question of fitting in where I think the best potential is and where they might play. But I mean, there's guys that are on the left wing that are right wingers and et cetera. It's more just put them, slotting them in places where I think Zemer, Hellenius, and Rosen ultimately are top 9, have top 9 upside, more so than Poltapov and Krebs. So I've got them slotted one ahead, but that's a really solid group. And I think when I finish all 32 teams, of Buffalo is going to be certainly one of the top 10 under 25 and maybe top 5.
Yeah, I would concur there. I mean, you look at that defense. You got 2 first overall picks. You know what I mean? That's that's quite the luxury there. So you're already on the right path. But I agree with you. I think they need a bit more size. Maybe just a game breaker on offense. Right? They have a lot of good, but do they have that difference maker? I don't know. Maybe one of them is going to have to really stand out. Maybe it's Oslin. You seem to be very high on him, and you've made some good calls in the past. So Buffalo fans, maybe keep an eye on Mr. Noah there.
Yeah. And I mean, they got McLeod, right? So he does add some size, but I think that you're going to see a couple more of these guys traded, maybe in similar type deals down the road where, you flip, because you can only have so many 5'10", 5'11" wingers in your top 9. It's just the way of the league. So who knows? Maybe Rosen gets flipped for another 6'2" guy in a year or two or whatever. But expect there to be a couple more deals over the next year or two as they become more competitive, and hopefully, I mean, what's it been, a dozen years since they made the playoffs or more? It's time. Buffalo. Yeah. I want to see a changing of the guard in that division where Montreal, Buffalo, Ottawa,
Detroit,
they move up and it, I think every year the talent, the gap in talent has gotten closer and narrower. And I believe it might be this year that we see a really close playoff race with the bottom 4 that have been the typical bottom 4 start to really push the top 4 guys.
Yeah, I mean, the Atlantic has been and still is, in my opinion, the best division in the NHL. And by the looks of it, it's still going to be like it's going to keep being the strongest division. So you got teams like Buffalo and anyways, we'll get to a few others there, but we want to get to another team that's been sucking recently. Let's go on Chicago. Now, granted, they they got lucky last year with the first overall pick. They got their great game breaker there, Connor Bedard. You can build a franchise around this guy, but they're rounding out, right. The concern was, maybe a little thin on defense. Behind Bedard, there's not a ton, but I feel like we're starting to see the skeleton, right? And now it's about bringing the meat on there. What do you like most about Chicago's U25?
I like Connor Bedard the most. That's what puts them in the top 6 mix for me. If you took him out of that group, it wouldn't overwhelm me.
No,
you know what I mean? Like it's decent, but I think there's at least 5 teams without Bedard in there. I think there are at least 5 teams that you would take over them for sure. Yeah. But it's coming. I think they're another draft with maybe 2 or 3 first-round picks away from having being in the mix for the top 3 under 25 depth chart. But Bedard, there's like if he ends up being a 120-point scorer or whatever, that team can improve in an awful hurry. When one player is that good. So it won't be that long before they're competitive. Like I say, it's probably 1 more year, maybe 2. But I like Van Acker. I think he could be, and Mustard. I think they drafted some good players. Boisvert. They added 3 good forward prospects that potentially could be in their top 6 down the road. Now, a lot's got to go right with those guys. So in that regard, I think there's a lot of hope and prayer there with this group, but they're good players. And Nazar, it'll be interesting to see if Moore and Nazar end up on the wing. Yeah. I don't know that you can have a top 2 center group with Nazar and Bedard, 2 5'10" or under centers as your top 2 centers, because you've got to be able to check the top 2 lines. And like going up against a McKinnon, for instance, it's either Bedard or Nazar up against them. They're just going to have so much issue in front of the net, trying to contain a player like McKinnon or Barkov or you name it, right? So I think ultimately Boisvert, that's why they picked him top 20. He's a tough kid, big kid. The hope will be that down the road he's the complement to Bedard as a second line center.
I like it.
And Moore, even in his draft year, the NHL guys all thought, this guy's going to end up on the wing. Especially if you want him to be in your top 6. He's got, I don't know that he's the most creative player or got the greatest vision, but he's got great wheels, and he'll create offense up and down the wing using his speed. Now, he doesn't really have the size, I don't think, if you got Bedard as your number 1 center, to be the next guy up. They're going to need to have some size there. So, but hey, if he ends up being a second line winger, take your pick, either Nazar or Moore goes beside Bedard on the first line, and you got a lot of skill there. I'm sure Moore, if you said to him, listen, we're going to have to move you to the wing, but do you mind playing beside Connor Bedard? He might, okay, I guess so, twist my arm. Yeah. But Reichel is a decent, he's a top 20 pick, and if he ends up being on your third line down the road, then you're getting some depth. Kurashev's already an NHLer. Pridham, I liked. Nice pick. Colton Dock, Kirby's brother. He's, the typical 6'4" kid that needs a little time, but he certainly got NHL potential. Ludwinski took a step in the OHL last year. I like him. Slaggert already played some games. He graduated last year and already played some games with Chicago. Lardis is a good prospect. I've got him in a 5th. So they're getting some depth built up there. Yeah. Out of that group, there's probably 9 legitimate top 9 possibilities down the road. So they're getting there. Defense, Korchinski and Levshunov, that's what they're likely gonna. That was the plan, right?
Yeah,
get the right defenseman that hopefully can play with Korchinski. Honestly, I don't know who's going to defend with that pairing because they're both. I don't know. They both think offense, and I think Luke Richardson is the perfect man for the job, but he's got a big task ahead of him if that ends up being your top pairing. Because oh my goodness, there'll be a lot of offense, no doubt. They'll create a lot of offense and they'll be exciting. But I don't know. Especially if Bedard, Nazar, Korchinski, and Levshunov are out against other top lines in the league. There's going to be, nights where there's 8 goals scored and they get 4 and the other team gets 4. Just that line alone. So it'll be exciting, but I think Luke might be getting the gray hairs might start coming in a little faster for him there over the next year or two with that group. It's interesting. They signed Levshunov, so he's not going back for a second year. I think he could have used it, but hey, you pick a kid 2nd overall, big kid, he's physically ready. So look for him to win a spot, and it'll be trial by fire. They'll throw him right in the fire, and we'll see from day one. But it could be an interesting year for the goaltenders in Chicago. I like Yan too. He's a good goalie prospect.
Yeah.
Vlasic's already. He's kind of overachieved. He played 20 plus minutes already. He's a top 4 defenseman, young kid. Rinzel was a top 1st round pick. Del Mastro really came on in the after he was drafted. I like him. Crevier, 6'7" monster back there that has some decent upside. Allen, if he ends up being fourth pairing in this group, he was a 1st round pick. So
yeah, that's it.
And Wyatt Kaiser was a high pick too. So the defense is really coming. There's a nice group there. I still think that they're 1 draft away from having a really competitive group, but they've turned it around in a hurry, and I think they're only one more draft with several high picks away from having an elite under 25 group.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think if you get Bedard, his line mate of the future, right? The another elite forward to pair up with him, you're cooking with gas there. That's I think that's pretty encouraging. If we move on now to the team that finished dead last this year, the worst team in the league, who also happened to get the 1st overall pick, San Jose Sharks. They got their franchise player there, Macklin Celebrini, but my goodness, you look at that forward group, that is exciting. And then you look at the defense, maybe not as much. What do you think?
Yeah, that's well put. And the goaltending too.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Magnus Krona, I don't know. Okay. Good luck.
They're going to score goals.
Yeah, no, they are. And it'll be interesting to see where Will Smith ends up playing. Edstrom's not ready, obviously. So, but I don't know. I'd be surprised if they start the year with Celebrini and Smith at center. Certainly their top 2 centers. it'll be like Chicago. It'll be a lot of 8-7 games, Ultimately, I think Smith should be on the wing because he doesn't pay any attention to defense as far as I'm concerned. He's up at the other team's blue line all the time. You can't have a center. You can't have a center at the NHL level standing at the other team's blue line when the puck's in your zone. You just can't. No. And I don't know, for whatever reasons, his coaches let him do it in the development team and in college last year, in large part because they had Ryan Leonard, who's one of the best defensive forwards that I've seen in the last decade, prospects wise. Well, he doesn't have him anymore. But you know who is really, really good defensively? Celebrini. So yep. I just think it's a natural that you put him on his wing, let Celebrini take care of the defensive end of things, feed him the puck. Eklund on the other side. Holy moly. Eklund was just breaking through last year, but that's 3 top 7 picks there, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that could be just a dynamite line down the road.
Absolutely.
And I love Edstrom too. I think eventually him or Bjorkstrand, take your pick. 2 big Swedish centers. You can have 2 or 3, whichever one wins. It may the best man win. But put them with Musty and Chernyshov. That could be a heck of a second line if they all develop. Certainly Simo Boisvert the Snake would think that
Quentin Musty. He had a great season this year, so you know what? Make Simo look good.
He had a lot of points.
Yeah.
In a lot of 8-7 games and stuff, and disappeared in the playoffs, which didn't surprise me one bit. Once the hitting gets heavy, bye Musty. We'll see. We'll see in the NHL. The jury's still out for me with him, but yeah, he's got talent, size and talent. So if he can figure the rest out, but if he doesn't, hey, Haltnen can replace him in a heartbeat, right?
That's a heck of a shot.
He had a great year in London, goal scorer, big kid. Wetch, Bjorkstrand, Haltnen. I like all 3 of those lines. And Bordeleau, I've got him slotted in 4th, but he could easily be the second line center.
Yeah.
So Gushin had a good year in AHL. He's only 5'8", but he's a stocky kid, good player. Tarrant's, I think, has NHL potential. Sidorov scored 50 in the WHL, so he's a decent prospect too. There's some really nice pieces there. They're 1 or 2 more drafts away, and I think it's going to be defensemen that they've got to target, obviously, just as you mentioned. Dickinson, he's the first piece there, right? Mm-hmm. I do like Roberts and Miskey. I think on this team, at least one of them ends up playing down the road. 2 big right defensemen that I thought should have been picked higher than they were in the draft, so I don't mind them. Mukhamadullin, I forgot an A in there. Imagine misspelling Mukhamadullin. How could you do that?
Shakir. Yeah.
There should be an A between the H and M. Sorry about that, but I think people know who I'm talking about.
There's not too many of those.
Yeah, let's just call him Shakir. Shakir O'Near. Loads of potential there. He could be a first pairing guy if he puts it all together. Size, skating, shot. Wallenius, decent. They picked up Dickinson and Wallenius, so there's a start, right? I do like the Havlid kid and Kenyoni, but they're both 5'9". So it remains to be seen, but I think one of the 2 probably makes it. There's some decent defensemen there, but really the only one that looks like he's a surefire top 3 guy would be Dickinson at this point, and they needed to do that. So that made sense for them to move up and get Dickinson.
Great pick. Mm-hmm.
That was a good play by them because they had to get a defenseman with their second high pick.
Absolutely. And then like you mentioned, the goaltending needs to be addressed, but I think San Jose began their rebuild relatively, not that long ago, but I think Mike Greer has done some great work and his scouting staff as well. And, they've gotten lucky, right? Get the first overall pick, you get your franchise player, but it should be an exciting time in San Jose for quite a few years.
They'll suck, this year and get another high pick and make some trades and likely get 2 first rounders again. Address the defense a little more, maybe pick a goalie in the top 60, and there might only be one more draft away from just having a killer squad. So the future's looking brighter for sure. They've got the winner in Celebrini, and you go from there.
Exactly. Another guy you can build a franchise around. Moving on to the newest franchise in the NHL. Let's talk about the Utah Hockey Club. Really can't wait for them to get an actual name. But again, they've been bad for a while. And you know what? They've reaped the benefits of that. Look at that core. It's looking pretty solid. But I think even this year they could actually be competitive. They made some big moves in the offseason, getting Sergachev and whatnot. But the future looks bright in Utah.
Yeah, I noticed you kept saying "but," and who's the first guy in that list?
Daniel Boot. Daniel Boot.
Yeah, he's got it. Loads of potential. Doan jumped into the NHL and almost point per game to start. So
fantastic.
He for now will be ahead of Boot. Obviously, Bute's probably a year or two. I think he's got 2 more years left on his contract. Then we'll see him come over. But I was a little surprised that they didn't take a defenseman, to be honest with you. I think Genther can be a first-line winger, but I guess maybe they don't think so. And, I love Oginla, but you look at that defense, and they certainly could have used a right defenseman as far as I'm concerned. They're years away from getting that fixed up. I don't see Lamoureux as a first pairing defenseman. I'm not even sure Simashev will be a first pairing defenseman, but if he is, I think you have to get an offensive guy to go with him. Soderstrom still hasn't made the team, even though he was a top 12 pick a few years back. And I don't know, he's talking about maybe heading back to Sweden. They haven't signed him yet. Kesselring has become a reliable, steady NHLer. Not a huge fan of Gahan, but they picked him. Kolyachonok, we'll see. There's a lot of question marks with that defense, and that's what keeps them, I think, out of the top 5 when I end up ranking all of the teams, but close. You gotta love. You gotta love Butte, Cooley, Aginla. That's a nice starting point. Baudouin, third line center, great potential there. Genther, if he's a second line winger for you, that's solid. Hayton, this is he's kind of on his last chance here, but sometimes it's not easy becoming a top 2 center. It can take, we've seen it with Kotkaniemi from the same draft class. It takes a while sometimes to get to that point. And this is a kind of a make or break year for Hayton as far as whether he'll ever be a legitimate top 2 center. This is the year where he's got to put up the points. I like Lutz. I think he could be a solid third line winger. Nice size. Nord, fourth line. If he plays, competes, uses his size, he could be a good fourth liner. McBain, at this point, you probably even put him ahead of Hayton, but I'm going on potential down the road.
Yeah, that's it.
Hayton still has that top 2 potential, and I don't think McBain ideally is a top 2 center for you, but at this point, he's the guy. He'd be the second guy on the depth chart today. Ratty, he's not a bad prospect. Ratu or whatever. Farinacci, I like. Castagna, I like. So they're getting there. I still think that I think they have to draft a couple more defensemen before they're legitimate contenders to make the playoffs. Might be one more year of maybe being a top 10 team as far as a draft pick goes, maybe 2 years, but it's getting there. They've got a great coach. Love Andre. Vrabel's a good goalie prospect. So that's a decent group. And they're probably, I don't know if they'll end up being like 6th on my list or not, but they're certainly in the running for the top 6 when I do my final rankings.
Yeah, definitely. And the last team we'll touch on today, and maybe you've probably guessed the team that's missing here, the Montreal Canadiens, of course. Another one that's, a lot of people are saying could be the best U25 core. And Jesus, when you got Meshar Beck on your 4th line, you think you're in business there. You see that depth on defense. Where do you want to start with this? It's there's a lot.
Well, I mean, somebody was remarking that, hey, where's Konyushkov and
there's more.
Volokin?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, you take your pick with Trudeau or Konyushkov. It could have been one or the other. I mean, I like them both about the same. They're both, long shots to make the Canadiens just because there's such depth on defense right now. But, he'd be the number 11 there for me. And you could argue him ahead of Trudeau, and that's fine. I get it. But, you can't say, well, he should be in that top 6 or top 8. It's just all of these guys are proven that they can play in the NHL already, and they're all up 25. So the future is indeed bright on defense with that group. Wow. I think it's the best under 25 group of defensemen that the Canadiens have ever had. I mean, I looked back at 76 and 89, and for me, there's no comparison. Yeah, 76 had Larry Robinson, but that was it. The rest of them, I think, 6 defensemen with more potential than the second guy from that group. Primo proved himself last year. At 24, he could be a solid backup NHL goalie, I think. Fowler's got starter potential all day. Dobish has backup NHL potential all day too. Mm-hmm. So that's a solid 3 goaltenders. But what really excites me is that forward group.
Wow.
Wow. I mean, like when you've got Joshua Waugh and Newhook on, and this is just under 25 guys.
Exactly.
When you got them on your 3rd line, you're cooking with gas.
Exactly.
Back fourth spot, Jack-Eye. Well, he'll have to be the 5th center, but that's 5 good center under 25 centers with 2 on the wing as well.
Yeah. So
strongest group of centers, deepest group of centers that the Canadiens have had ever, I think. And that is, how many years were we saying they need centers, they need centers, they need centers? And now
I can remember. Yeah.
And now there's a bevy of them. So, and now that's not even mentioning what are, probably the 2 best prospects of the whole group, Demidov and Slafkovsky. So,
yeah.
You could say, well, why is Demidov there? Why isn't Caulfield? Well, this is again projecting ultimate upside, right? For me, Demidov's going to be a better all-around player than Caulfield down the road. Mm-hmm. I think he can be a superstar. Same can be said for Slafkovsky. So Suzuki's got a bright future ahead of him, having those 2 potential line mates. Now I did this under 25 before August 11th. I didn't do that purposely, but then Suzuki's 25, so he's no longer, so he graduates. So, but it's, as of today,
he's still 24.
That's right. He's still 24. And there, I mean, I looked at Ottawa and Detroit. They were both in the running, but they have kind of made a step back a bit. Some guys graduated recently, and they didn't have as many high picks. They're sort of went for it the last couple of years, and didn't have as many high picks. Their groups aren't quite in the same class, I don't think, as the top 6 here, but they're close. I think they're both top 10, depth chart wise. So, relax, Ottawa fans. But Brady Tkachuk's another example. He turns 25 in September. So, he's on the cusp too, right? Once Brady, like if you did this again in October or whatever, Ottawa's under 25 depth chart. It's not as strong as it's not deep. There's still the studs with Stützle, Sanderson, obviously.
Yakimchuk.
Yeah, but when you get down to the third level, there's no Josh Wad, Alex Newhook, on the third line on the depth chart with them, and they lack the overall depth right now. But I'm sure they'll get it turned around. They need a little more defense, but this group, hey, if Caulfield's a second line winger and he can be a 40-goal scorer, that it's been a while since Montreal had a 40-goal scoring second liner, let alone a first liner. Doc, I think when you compare this group to others, when you say, okay, that first line, you can say that McTavish, Carlson, Seneca, you can argue one way or the other with those. But when you get to the second group and you've got that 6'4" guy that I think can still, I think has point per game potential or darn close to it, he kind of tips the scales for me over a lot of the other teams, where that's just, if he's not in your first group and he can be as good as I think he can be, and Hage, sky's the limit with him too, right?
Wow.
He can be, he's got top 6 potential all day, I believe. Newhook, second half last year, Newhook looked like he can be a second liner. Same thing. So what I like about this group is that I think there's 9 or 10 legitimate top 6 talents there. And then you could also say the same thing about the top 12 there being legitimate top 9 guys. So when you have that sort of depth, you may the best men win. The other guys you can deal or whatever. And but when you've got multiple guys that can fight for jobs that are legitimate prospects for those jobs, then the odds that you do get a really good top 6 and a really good top 9 are exponentially higher. And now Montreal, especially if they add like Line A, for instance, to this group, he's only like 26.
Exactly.
Well, you've got that core to grow with over the next while. You got 2 years with Line A. If let's say they did trade for him, you'll know within 2 years whether you're going to re-sign him or not, right? But if they did trade for him, and I think they have the assets there, you look at that defense, there's all 10 of those guys are going to play in the NHL, I believe.
They should.
And only 6 of them or 7 of them can play with Montreal. So they've got multiple first-round picks. You make a deal. You pick up a guy like Line A. You put him with this group of what might be the most promising under 25 group in the league. And who knows? It's exciting. I still think Montreal's making a move before training camp to try to bolster that top 6. And if it's a Line A, great. I hope that they, it was announced today that his time's up with the player assistance program. So let's see. I hope they really make a play for him, because I think now's the time. When you've got that type of depth and talent in your system, you can afford to take a gamble on a guy. And I really think now's the time to do it. And if it works out, the Canadians could be right at the top of the league. So
yeah, and
exciting times.
Grant, what's crazy is that, you know, you made 5 lines there, but there's not even Heineman, Sawyer, Kidney, Davidson, Farrell. Like there's so many more. You can make more lines. So like the depth is just absurd. It's honestly impressive that there's so many prospects that can hit. You know, not all of them will, obviously, and some of them are going to get moved. But as it stands today, like this group is just beyond impressive. I mean, kudos to the team. Yeah,
I am doing I'm publishing a Habs prospect guide that it's going to be going out to all my subscribers probably within the week. I've done a top 42. I ranked 42 prospects, profiles on each of them, like 42. And like each one of them are decent players, you know?
42.
And I mean, I remember before trying to come up with top 20 like a decade ago, and you had, you know, guys that were ECHL.
That's it. I saw a list where I had like Jacob de la Rose _1. You know what I mean? Yeah. There was a time that was a thing. Like, crazy.
Yeah. For all the grief that Bergevin takes, you know, and I've showed it before. Like the prospect Louis LeBlanc was at the top of their the Tenorti, Beaulieu, and LeBlanc and Gallagher were the top 4 prospects when he took over. So came a long way. Added a lot of depth. The new regime has only added to that, and it's finally have the cupboard stocked full again, and it's time to start winning, baby.
I think it'll come sooner than people realize. I mean, look at this team. It's something special. So like Grant mentioned, right, there's going to be more teams. Well, actually, all 32 teams you're going to touch on in the article there. You know, we could have included Columbus in this. I think they're on the cusp there. You know, Lindstrom with all that group that they have there. It's something special that they're building. But we only wanted to touch on 6 today. Those 6 teams, I think, you know, they're trending in the right way. And then moving forward, I mean, July 28th, that's 2 days from today. The summer showcase is underway at the USA Hockey Arena in Plymouth, Michigan. That goes on until August 3rd. And then August 5th is the start of the Linka Gretzky all the way until August 10th in Edmonton. So we're going to have some hockey. We're going to have actual games to watch and discuss. I'm just so excited for that. Finally, I love summer. You know, I enjoy the warm weather, but I do miss it. I do miss it. Ugh.
Well, Tina loves her Olympics, and I'm going to be booted down to the basement. I'd be afraid when it comes to, I mean, I do too, but I mean, my job is to watch this hockey. So I got to watch it as much as I can. I don't know what all is going to be televised with the Olympics being on. I don't think showcase I'll be watching on TV, but I'm sure the Holenka will have some games. They always do on TV, unless the Olympics overrun it. I haven't looked at it yet. I don't even know, but if and when there are games on, basement, it's the basement for me.
Basement. All right. I'll be tuned in as well. And we thank you for tuning in and supporting the show. You know, like I said, we go 12 months a year. We love what we do. We love talking about these prospects, and we hope that you love listening about them as well. So for Grant McCagg and producer Jimmy behind the scenes, we thank you. Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a comment, leave a like. It does genuinely help. So until next time, I'm producer Shane. Take care, everyone.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast, Recruits Draftcast on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.